Welcome to The Struggle is Real, a show for 20-somethings that are trying to figure out adulting. I'm your host, Justin Peters. Each episode, we focus on solving a problem that we will face throughout this defining decade that wasn't covered in the classroom. This could include topics about our career, health, relationships, and money. Let's get into it. I think I'm safe to make the overgeneralization that, at one point or another, we've all felt undervalued at work. Maybe we believe we should be paid more, be given more responsibility, or have a more significant title. But believing us doesn't get us very far. How do we actually get what we want? Today's guest believes it starts with becoming a self-advocate. She's going to explain how to get the confidence to do just that without coming off as someone who is bragging or boasting. Stephanie Ritz is a career consultant and mindset transformation coach. She founded Claim Your Career, where she helps professional women rise faster, earn what they're worth, and claim their seat at the table with confidence. Stephanie gives a ton of great advice throughout our conversation. My favorite was creating a living resume to record and organize your skills and accomplishments throughout your career. This is just one of many goodies she shares. So let's get into it. I hope you enjoy my conversation with the Philly sports fan, career superstar, single mom, Stephanie Ritz. Let's get started actually with college for you. You graduated with a journalism degree and then you got into banking. What's the story there? How did that happen?
Yeah, so I went to school for communications in general, part of a larger product of the Temple University communications program is journalism, public relations, and advertising. So it was kind of an all-inclusive bucket of information. And I graduated really thinking that I was actually going to go into public relations. And I had started in a direct sales company while I was in college and working for an insurance company, just, money coming in however you can get it while you're in college. And I ended up getting laid off from my insurance job just months before graduation. And I thought, okay, no big deal. I wasn't going to be in insurance anyway. So let me just continue pursuing my direct sales business. I did that for a while and then I graduated and I was like, I've really been busting my butt for several years now. I think I kind of just want to spend some time at home with my son. I had a little boy by then. So I continued with a direct sales company for several years after I graduated, and that supported me and my son for several years. And then I really started to get burnt out. This is before internet, so it was all old school marketing. So it was really hard back then to really drum up the sales. Like it's just not the same as today. So I got burnt out, even though I had a really successful business, and decided to go into corporate, basically trying to do anything. To get into a good PR firm, it's really tough. And I just needed any job. So in 2008, we had moved to a new town, and that's when the market crashed. I thought that there would be plenty of opportunities for me to try my hat at different things, maybe in the communication sector, and there was literally nothing. So I took an entry-level job at a bank, a little community bank in my neighborhood, and it had just opened. So they were looking for customer service people. I joined on and I was like, okay, I'm going to give this a go. I have no banking experience, but this is the cards I was dealt. Let's go with it. And that turned out to be an incredible career opportunity for me. In 3 years, I was a VP at that bank. And then 2 years later, I was a senior VP and I stayed in banking for 7 years. I had no idea that that was coming, but sometimes you just have to make the most out of what you have. And that's where I ended up.
Mm. That's super interesting. And honestly, looking back on it now and also having some conversations with people that are younger than I realize we put way too much pressure on first job and crafting and picking this career path. And honestly, we don't even know what we don't know. It's one of those things. I don't know what your thoughts are on this, but if it checks most of the boxes in terms of an opportunity and you enjoy your coworkers, you don't mind your boss, you have a paycheck coming in, you have some benefits, and it doesn't sound completely boring to you, I think it might be worth pursuing that opportunity. What are your thoughts on first job out of college?
Yeah, I think, after you graduate, it is nice to try to get a job in your field, but sometimes the opportunities just aren't there. So making the most out of what you do have is a really great opportunity to actually learn new skills and try things that you maybe hadn't experienced while you were in college. And you may find that you have strengths or interests that you didn't realize that you had. I still have no interest in banking 7 years later, but I found things within that opportunity that I loved. I really enjoyed the relationship building aspect of it. I enjoyed being able to present to boards things that I didn't see in my wheelhouse. I thought I was going to be that behind the scenes person helping others to really elevate their careers in public relations. So, I was exposed to so many different things and running departments and teams. I didn't know that that's something that I would want to do in the corporate world, but I took some of that from my direct sales experience in building a team there and really utilized that in my banking career. And it really helped skyrocket me into things that I didn't know. And now I have connections with people that, are lifelong impactful mentors and friends to me. So yeah, I think when you're getting out of college, make the most out of the opportunities that you have. Try everything, while you're early on in your career. You just never know what things may pop up for you that you didn't intend.
Mm. And when you were going through your 7 years in banking, did you was that intentional, the direction you were headed with, client interfacing and wanting to manage people, et cetera? Were you taking inventory each year, trying to move closer to the things that you were really interested in within side of that banking career itself?
Yeah, I honestly didn't even know what opportunities were there for me because this was not an industry I had intended to be in. So I started having conversations with my manager about, well, where do I go from here? Because I took an entry level customer service job, basically a teller. I want to know what else is available to me. And she wasn't someone who really was ready to expand me in my career. We had a really great working relationship, but she had a very old school way of thinking that you have to put in years before you can kind of get to that next level, which for her was a banking officer. So I started talking to other people in the bank who had been around for years as well to see what other options there might be for me. And I found out that there were different paths that I could take into managing teams and bringing innovative ideas. This was really when, online banking was becoming a big hot thing and mobile deposit and all these new technologies. So I thought, okay, if I can start bringing ideas and thoughts to the table, this might expand my opportunities. And I don't know where it's going to lead. I honestly don't know, but I know that it will get me out of customer service.
Mm.
And I was really willing and open to trying anything, seeing what was out there and really capitalizing on this opportunity, being in a smaller company that was really growing rapidly. So that's what I did.
Yeah, let's put a bookmark in this thread real quick and let's jump back to something that you mentioned earlier, and that's your son.
Mhm.
So you had a very, I'm going to guess, untraditional college experience because you had a son after your freshman year of college, correct?
Yes. So I was the first one on both sides of my family to go to college. I found out that I was pregnant in my freshman year, and I finished my freshman year. I was actually at Shippensburg University in the dorms, pregnant. And I finished my year there and then came home to Philly, and I had my son. And I found myself very much alone in that situation. So it was just he and I. My parents, my mom really didn't have any kind of financial ability to support us. So I stayed there for 6 months, but I had decided immediately that this was not going to be the end of my college career. I
Mm.
will find a way to do this. So that's exactly what I did. I took out extra student loans. I got two part-time jobs. I found, different means of childcare. No car, nothing fancy. I took out extra student loans like anybody would for housing, but I got a really tiny one-bedroom apartment for the two of us. And I graduated. I transferred to Temple University and graduated 3.5 years later. So just one semester behind. I took the semester off after I had him in August. I took off that fall, returned in the spring, and just powered through, stacking all of my classes, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Tuesday, Thursday, working on the alternate days. And so, yeah, that's when I graduated and I had the opportunity to just stay in my direct sales business that allowed me to spend time with him that I had missed over those years. But I was very determined at the time to continue my course in being the first graduate in my family. And I was.
Good for you. You are a badass. I can't
Thank
even
you.
I could barely take care of myself in college. I can't imagine taking care of somebody else. Were you mature enough at that point in time, or did that moment really make you mature and make you have to step up to the plate on that sense?
Yeah, I was like most kids, very in a self-centered world before I had him, but the moment he came into my world, it was no longer about me. And every decision that I made, I decided was going to be for him. And graduating college, although it was certainly a feather in my cap, for me also felt like the door to create a life for the two of us that made sense financially. So that was really what led me. And every decision that I made, like I said, was really thinking about him first. And yeah, there was certainly moments throughout those years that were not um, made with the greatest of maturity and decision making, as I was still, growing myself. I had him just after I turned 19. So I had a lot of growing up to do during that time, but my will and my vision was so strong that it really carried me through.
Mm. Was You mentioned the lack of support, but was there somebody that you look back on now that stepped up and really helped support you through that moment?
I had a lot of emotional support, from my family, in many respects, but financially, no. It was definitely all me. And there was a lot of people that kind of came in and out of my life during those years that helped helped me. Whether it was babysitting on a Saturday night so I could waitress and add a few extra bucks to my pocket, or just giving me a break for a few hours, or just allowing me to cry for an hour because life was so overwhelming at that moment. I would have friends that would drive me home from school on days where I was just running so late to daycare that the bus just wasn't going to cut it,
Mm.
really going out of their way. So there's a lot of really small moments that were really powerful for me from a lot of different people.
Mm. Yeah, you've had some remarkable years, and now you have your own coaching practice exclusively for women. Do you work with any men?
I don't know.
Okay, cool, awesome. I'm curious. I know you've talked a little bit about how COVID has affected women differently than men. Where have you seen the difference in the last year between the two genders?
Yeah, I think when a lot of kids had to be homeschooled, it was the mothers that decided to step back and take care of that role at home. Sometimes that meant having to leave their job or cut back on their hours or make adjustments where you didn't see that so much predominantly with men. Same thing with caretaking of maybe elderly parents that had been affected or quarantined or needed that additional support because of COVID. Typically, that's the women. I think those traditional gender roles really seem to kick in over the last year and a half, and it has disproportionately affected women. Um, so I'm hoping to see a resurgence now that things are kind of moving in a better direction, to see more women re-entering the workforce and continuing to move up into leadership roles.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think you mentioned it as quote quote the second shift that females are taking on a lot of the childcare. And there was a stat out there. I think it was on a blog post that you wrote that 1 in 4 women are unemployed, and that was because of the lack of childcare. It just made more sense to take care of children in this time versus going to work, which is unfortunate. But boots on the ground now, from your own experience, not statistics, do you feel like women are re-entering the workforce right now? Are you having some of those conversations with women?
I am having a lot of conversations with women about career transition. I think that the experience that we've all had in the last year has been a really good opportunity for reflection in what's really important in our lives and moving into a career or their own business that's really empowering for them. Um, I can't say from a global perspective statistically what those numbers look like, but I know that the conversations that I am having, is around really wanting to make those shifts and reprioritizing their life now that some of them have been home with their kids for the last year or taking care of their parents. I think a lot of people are ready to really focus on remote work so that they can live in a more fulfilled way or travel more. So I'm seeing a lot of that for both men and women. But as you shared, I work exclusively with women.
Hmm. So let's get into some of the work you do as a coach. You have the meat and potatoes of this conversation is going to be centered around this 5 steps to corporate success. This awesome little guide that you have. I found a lot of great nuggets in there. And the first 2 steps are get clear on your goals and show them your authentic self. I don't want to spend a ton of time there because not because I don't think they're important, but because there's so much in 3, 4, and 5 that I want to ask you about. But
Okay.
before I move forward on that, is there anything that you want to add on either 1 or 2?
Yeah, I mean, getting clear on your goals is really about aligning your career with your life, shedding the expectations of our parents, our culture, society, and really understanding what success looks like to you, and finding a career where you can be your authentic self. I think burnout comes from trying to put on a show every day and doing something that doesn't feel true to you.
Hmm.
And just the exhaustion of that can really affect you in so many different ways. So those are the only things I think I would mention on those 2 that are, I think, really important.
Hmm. Yeah, I like the comment there that you talked about around burnout because I think that is very true. So number 3 is build relationships with decision makers. So let's
Mhm.
start off and talk about first, what do you mean by decision makers?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think a lot of people have an easy time making friends at work with coworkers and colleagues, but they're not going to be the people that move you forward in your career necessarily. So, when I say decision makers, once you have an idea of where you want to go in your career, start becoming friends with those people that can actually help move you in that direction. And not even just friends, but making sure that they know who you are and what you can bring to the table. So, an example of that would be I think I've already mentioned in my early on banking career, my manager really had the notion that you have to be in banking for years before you get a promotion to banking officer, which isn't really a substantial step up. So in talking with, the CEO, the CFO of the bank that I was in, they were like, no, if we see value in what you can bring to the table and you have the ability and skills and vision that align with what we're trying to do with the bank, it's not going to take years for you to get there. So I made sure I had conversations with them and built those authentic relationships with them so they knew exactly what I could bring to the table and how I was performing. And it was those relationships that got me promoted. It wasn't just my boss.
Hmm.
Um, my boss was not going to allow that type of growth.
And what was your boss's reaction whenever you did get promoted?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of office politics there, right? I
Yeah.
mean, I think that that's the case in every corporate environment to some extent. So she remained very cordial. And we did have a really good relationship up till then, but she just didn't agree with, I guess, the decisions made by the people above her. So, she remained at the bank and she did her thing and I did mine. And yeah, those can be a little bit tricky to navigate as well when you get promoted as a colleague to your boss, and that's not necessarily expected by them. But you know, that's I think all part of navigating relationships. Is this isn't about her. It's not really about anybody else. It was about me and what I was bringing to the table and my vision and my goals, and that aligned with the way that the bank had envisioned the direction of their company.
Hmm. So specifically in that situation, who was the person that you were making a relationship with that pulled you up?
Yeah, the CFO.
Okay.
She was CFO and COO. So I worked, directly with her on projects for the bank as she was a COO. But she was one who was really the catalyst for um, my subsequent promotions.
And how do you go about building a relationship with someone like that? As you mentioned, I think it's easy to build relationships with your peers. I don't know if there is something there in terms of I don't know, you all seem at the same level, so it's just kind of natural. But how do you go about, either through that experience or any other experience that you've had in your career, building relationships with corporate leaders?
I took every single opportunity that I could to be in front of her. So whether it was at an office happy hour, if it was the company holiday party, a meeting that she was walking through the space where I could just stop and have a conversation with her. I tried to learn as much as I could about her to see if there was any commonalities that we can have a conversation about. Or if I had an idea for the bank, I would ask her for that one-on-one meeting. So it's really about being bold enough to start a conversation. Most people are open to it if you approach them at the right time. Timing is really important. And then you're really consistent about staying in front of them and showing them, not just with your words, but with your work, what you bring to the table.
Hmm. Okay, let's take one more step back since you brought it up. Getting in front of them for the first time might be easy at a small community bank where you're going to bump into them on a pretty frequent basis. But what if you're at a larger company, and the corporate leader that you want to get in front of is not someone that you typically bump into at meetings or even at the water cooler or whatnot? How do you start or approach that situation?
Yeah, I think honestly it's in the same way, but because your time and opportunities are more limited, you really have to come with impact. So right now we're in a very much a Zoom world. So when you're on a Zoom and you happen to have that audience, get there early, ask questions, have conversation, stay late, don't be the first one to jump off, smile, be engaged. And I send emails to my CEO, my COO, whenever I have a thought, idea, suggestion that I think is impactful, just go right for it. What do you have to lose? If you really feel like what you're bringing to the table is valuable, share it out, with the right people. Keep getting your name and your face in front of them. And when you do have those, really small windows of opportunity, make sure that you come with your full energy and prepared to showcase who you are and really build an authentic relationship. So it's not just about saying, hey, did you know that I did this? Or, did you know that our team, moved the needle this much in the business last year? No, like it's really about just making a friendship first. I think that that's really important. So every time that I've navigated these relationships, whether near or far, it's always started with some sort of commonality, some sort of shared interest. I would listen in on calls to see what the little back and forth conversation would be between other people. How can I interject myself into those conversations? What are their interests? It's all about managing up, understanding who your audience is, how they would prefer to be approached, because some people aren't going to read their emails. Other people are going to feel it may be a little aggressive to just pick up the phone and call them. So, see how you can get in with them in the best way that's going to serve them, not you.
Hmm. That's interesting. So, are you saying that you would reach out, hey, CEO, I had this thought and idea. What do you think? Or, hey, CEO, I heard you talking about this. This is a thought or idea I had around that certain situation.
Yeah, I think either way would be fine. And I've done both, where if I really feel like I have a powerful topic to bring to the table, I'll just send them an email, and they may or may not respond. But I can tell you that now they've seen my name. I can follow it up the next time that we have a conversation. Hey, Mr. Who, whatever. I sent you an email on this. I just wanted to share my thoughts. If you have time to discuss, or if it's something of interest of you, I'd love to set up a 15-minute call to go over it in more depth. I absolutely will put myself out there because most people are open to it. You're usually your own worst critic when it comes to really sharing out your thoughts and ideas. Are they really powerful? Are they impactful? Am I going to sound like an idiot? So really replaying those thoughts in your own head and saying, no, these are just people. These are human beings, and you may have something really valid to share. So why not put it out there? But when you do, be confident that what you have is valid.
Mm. Yeah, I've been working on this practice where I don't tell myself no. If I have an idea or a thought, I let someone else tell me that that idea or thought is not right versus never putting it out into the world and seeing that response back, because it is so tough. You are right. You're your own biggest critic. And I have found many times that I'm like, I don't think this is got to be, I think this got to sound dumb. And then all of a sudden, I'm leading a project in some certain area because I gave my advice or 2 cents on something.
Yeah, absolutely. I think putting yourself out there and self-advocating, which is of course another part of the process here, is super important.
Hmm. And what about your boss in particular? We've talked a little bit about building relationships with corporate leaders, but somebody that you're going to have a lot more face time is your direct supervisor. Your first 90 days on the job, how do you go about beginning to build a relationship with your manager?
Yeah. So I think the first thing, again, is building it from an authentic place of really wanting to get to know them as a person and not just constantly keeping it about work. Let them know that you're open to conversation about, hey, how was your weekend? Or what do you have going on this week? Or, hey, did you catch the interview with Meghan and Harry? Whatever it happens to be that you may have some sort of conversation piece on, I think is a really great way to start building that relationship and not just constantly making it about work. I think it's super important to be focused on work while you're there. But like I said, everybody's just human. Everybody wants to have conversation outside of just the day to day 9 to 5 grind. So, in those first 90 days, allowing yourself to be vulnerable and open up a bit to share pieces of yourself and also engaging others in conversation about things not just about work.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I totally agree. And you mentioned it earlier, but I think a great place for that is before and after meetings. It is arriving 5 to 10 minutes before meetings,
Yeah.
5 to 10, sticking around 5 to 10 minutes after. Be the first one there and the last one out, and have conversations with someone once they walk in. And it doesn't always have to be your manager, it can be your peers, it can be anyone. And asking them genuine, interesting questions, I think, is such a great piece of advice.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah,
Mm.
and that can be, again, via Zoom in this new virtual world, or if you happen to have the opportunity to be in person, take that time. Those minutes before are so crucial.
Mm. So let's move to step 4 here, and it's build your resume. What do you mean by build your resume?
Yeah, so once you actually have your first job and you have, you've got your foot in the door, your resume is now starting. And I usually keep a working resume on my desktop, not on my work computer, of course, on my home computer. And I add to that every time there's a new skill, a new thing that I learn, a new experience, a major thing that I implemented, I put it on my resume. And I always, as we talked about, always looking ahead to that next opportunity. What does that look like for me? Once I've identified exactly where I want to be, what skills do I need to get there? Because it's funny when you get into an interview situation, how quickly you forget about all the things that you accomplish. So having that working resume to constantly build on and add, kind of momentum to get to that next level is super important. And the skills that you need to get to that next level, identify what those are and start building that resume as you go. So for me in banking, there's a lot of things that I needed to learn about the online banking world that I wasn't exposed to as a customer service representative. So I started seeking out how I can start to learn these things. And I asked to be put on projects. I asked to be involved in the implementation of new items. And next thing you know, I was the online banking officer for the entire bank. So building your resume is about understanding the skills that you need to get to the next level, but also really notating what you're doing as you accomplish them and adding those to your resume. Your resume shouldn't just be a bullet point of, degrees and experience as far as, this was my job that I was tasked to do, but these are the needle movers that I made in my company. These are the things that I've accomplished. So keeping a running resume and understanding what skills you need to get to the next level is all about building your resume.
So do you do that in a Google Doc or a Word document or like a note or something?
I just do an old school Word doc, nothing fancy.
And walk me through something that you just recently put on there. Like it's, I worked on this project. Do you put the date and or specifics or details around it?
Yeah. So, like, if I implement a new client that's really big for my company, I'm going to write down all the things that I needed to do to accomplish that and what my specific role in that was. And my role could just be I managed a team of 15 people to implement a client that is now, one third the, revenue for this territory. I'm very specific about the numbers because numbers are really crucial in an interview process, and what my role was and how that benefited the team. What were the skills that, I either learned or added to my resume by doing this, if it's a new experience, and if it's something that I'm charged with doing, how did that impact the bottom line for my company? So again, those are the things that you tend to forget, especially if you've been working for someone for a long time, how much you have personally added value to the company, and what that actually looks like in a numerical way can just easily fly out the window when you're actually in the interview process. So actually putting it on your resume, even if it's just your working doc for the process, is really helpful.
How long's that document for you now?
Oh, it's long.
Do you have backups somewhere too, just in case?
I do. I got it on a thumb drive. Yes.
And is there a cadence? Do you have a reminder like every Friday, dump your thoughts in from the week, or is it whenever something big or an idea comes to your head, you go to the document?
Yeah, for me now, it's just like, it's just one of those habits. So I don't necessarily have it on my calendar to do that, but whenever I am starting something new, or I'm going into a process with a new coaching client that might be a new exposure for me, I really document all of the things that we've kind of gone through, any new skills that I learned or skills that I helped them kind of walk through their process. So I just kind of do that now after all of my coaching calls. And then for any new projects that I'm working on in a corporate environment, same thing.
And do you have sections inside of this living document? Like, do you have accomplishments, skills I'm working towards? Is it broken out, or is it just a kind of a journal timeline?
Yeah, it's much more of a journal timeline, but I can say that I used that to really ramp up a more streamlined resume anytime that I was shifting jobs throughout my career.
And then do you have your target goal now in your corporate life, the position that you want to get to and the skills that you're still lacking in that certain area somewhere, or is that in the back of your head, or how do you manage that process?
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, right now, I'm navigating towards a different type of process. But I would say for anybody who is navigating their corporate world, it is good to have a target and understand where you want to be personally, to make sure that your skills are lining up for that job. And if they're not, identifying where those gaps are so that you can start building that into your own resume.
Hmm. Let's talk about the other side of the coin here. And whenever someone is in the job search process, something that I see with young professionals, I'm assuming you're going to see this with females as well, is once again saying no if they don't meet all the requirements that are listed on the job description itself. So if it's 5 years of product management and I have 3.5 years of product management, I say, I'm not qualified for this job. Do you see that with the females that you work with or coach along as well? And what do you think is the roadblock or the obstacle here?
Yes. Oh gosh, yes. And it's something that I preach to everyone, young, old, men, women. For me, I think 60% is a really great target. If you meet 60% of the criteria, apply if it's something that you're really passionate about. I mean, the application process itself, I think, is really grueling and not the best way to actually get the job that you're looking for. But as you're going through that process, yes, don't let perfectionism stop you. And I think the fear of failure is what stops people. So when they don't feel like they have all of the check boxes, they stop and they don't apply. And it's because of that, oh, well, I'm going to fail because I don't meet all of these requirements, which of course is absolutely untrue. There's so much more to accomplishing your job and being successful in your job than ticking all of those boxes. So I would say for anybody who is applying, go for 60% and just do it. Do it anyway. You have nothing to lose by applying, number one. Number two, as somebody who's been hiring people for 15 years, I can tell you that it is one of the least important things for me that people will put all of it out there in hopes of getting that golden unicorn applicant that maybe has it all. But I have, really looked outside of the box on other things outside of what is on that, that job request form. And I've hired some fantastic people over the years that maybe only had 50% of it because they had other qualities that were more important.
Mm. Yeah, and you don't have to have all 100% because honestly, if you have all 100%, then what do you have to learn that you're walking into the job with? And I think a good story to illustrate this might be the young girl that you hired that didn't know Excel. Can you tell that story?
Oh, yeah. So there was this girl who applied for a marketing position, and she had all of the great skills that she needed to really do well in this job. She was really personable, gave a fantastic interview, but did not know Excel. And this particular position, it really was crucially important that she knew Excel. And so we came back to her with that feedback like, this is an important piece. Everything else, you nailed it. We think you'd be a great fit. This young woman decided on her own to independently go and take an Excel course. And I didn't care that she didn't have a master's in Excel when she came out. She had the initiative to go learn what she was missing, and she
Mm.
got the job. And she has gone on to do incredible things, is now working for a really huge marketing company. So, sometimes it is saying, okay, I am missing this. I didn't know how crucial it was to the role. She applied anyway, and then she did end up getting the job. She did have to take that extra step, but she wowed us so much with all of the other assets that she had that one small thing was not a deal breaker.
Mm. What a badass story. That is cool. And I love initiative. That is like something you don't find too often in candidates, but when you do, you know it's something special because they are telling you that they're willing to learn whatever that they need to learn in order to do the job, which is super cool.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's move into number 5 here, and that's identify your limiting beliefs and self-advocate. So what I love this idea of being a self advocate, but I think this is going to be a big challenge for most people. This is a tough challenge for me as well. How do you differentiate between self advocating and boasting and bragging?
Yeah. So I think a lot of people get caught up in this and it literally paralyzes them from self advocating. Boasting and bragging is being flashy about your accomplishments in a way that you just want people to know what you've done because it elevates your sense of self. When you're self advocating, you're bringing value to someone else by sharing what you've done, and you're allowing people to recognize the skills that you bring to the table that can support them in their efforts or the bottom line for the company. And it's really important that you do that for so many different reasons. But if you're trying to excel in your career, you have to tell people what you're capable of. You just have to get comfortable with saying, this is the things that I did to help the company this year, or I was excited to be part of this team that elevated the company to, bring on 10 new clients, whatever the case may be. And even in also just asking for what you're worth. I think a lot of people fall short here as well, really understanding what your salary should be versus what it is, and being willing to ask for it. Ask for the promotion, ask for the raise. These are things that most companies don't just freely give out. I can tell you that every raise that I've ever gotten is because I've asked for it, except for once. One time they came to me as opposed to me coming to them and said, okay, we're giving you a raise because of X, Y, and Z. But all of the other raises that I've ever received were because I asked for them. I asked for a specific dollar amount and I came prepared as to why. And that's all part of self advocating and saying, these are the things that I'm bringing to the table. This is what I know that I'm worth. And this is what I'd like to be making.
Mm. How do you hype yourself up for that conversation? I mean, you got all the I can imagine it. I can picture it. You got all the documents. You went to your journal. You highlighted all the things that are going to be important for this conversation. You're ready for it. You asked for time on your manager's calendar. What's the half an hour leading up to it look like?
Not psyching yourself out, I think, is number one, because a lot of times we can talk ourselves out of what we have already decided that we're worth, whether that be for a raise or a promotion. Um, I don't know. I feel like for myself, I've been so driven by vision. I understand exactly what I'm worth, that I'm like excited for this conversation. My expectations are high. Like I'm going in going, I know that I am worth $10,000 more than you're paying for me, and I'm going to ask for it. It doesn't mean I'm going to get it. Maybe I'll get something. Maybe I won't get anything. I don't know. But I'm going to at least tell them this is what I'm worth and why, and then set the expectation that this is what I'm worth. And if you're not going to give it to me, that's okay. But now I need to make the decision of whether I need to go somewhere else who is going to pay me what I'm worth. So I think this is where coaching really comes in strong, right? Because those limiting beliefs about, what we're really worth, what the value is that we can bring to the table, being self-reflected back, as you said, from someone else to say, yeah, actually, you are a badass. You should be making this much money. Go in there and ask for it like you deserve it, because you do. Um, and honestly, that's a lot of what I work on with my clients. I
Mm-hmm.
just had a client that got a 25% increase. She had been working her way up to this for months. And, she had all of the reasons why. She had all the comparative notes around what other people with her title were making in the area. We did all of the research. She was prepared, but it took her so long to go in there and have the conversation. And as much as I was proud of her when she finally got it, I said to her, how would you have felt if you were able to do this 3 months ago? 25% salary increase is huge to be missing out on for 3 months because you were too nervous to ask. So I think really just understanding what your position is, why you deserve it, truly believing it. When you truly believe that you're worth it, the anxiety is not there. The excitement replaces the anxiety because you know that you're asking for what you deserve.
Mm. Totally agree. I reflect that in my experience as well, but I remember the first time I asked for a raise, and that was really nerve wracking. And once you build a couple successes in that area, you feel more confident about it. But early on, that very first time, I remember I had to just commit to it. I had to tell myself, I have to have this conversation and know what the outcome is going to be so that I can decide, as you mentioned, do I want to stick around for what I'm currently making if they're not willing to offer me what I want? Or do I need to go look for another option? And that's tough, but like I said, you just have to have some pride, some self pride in yourself to follow through on that. So that's super cool, and it is neat to be a fly on the wall and so many of those experiences for other people. I've never been a part of that experience, and I think that would be so fascinating.
I'm telling you, I celebrated that win with her as if it was my own because we worked so hard on finding that language and finding that self-belief, that when she finally got it, it totally felt like a win for me.
Mhm.
And something else I would say is, when you go in and ask for a raise or a promotion, that the number isn't always the deciding factor. There could be so many other things that you can ask for if the number can't be there. So maybe if you ask for 10,000, they give you 5, but then you negotiate for an extra week vacation. So find the other things that are important to you, and then make your decision from there.
Hmm. And what was the how did she tee the conversation up leading up to it? Did she ask for a meeting beforehand? Did she just approach her boss and kind of corner them? What was the situation?
No, she asked for a meeting and she did let them know in advance what it was that she wanted to discuss. And she came prepared with, again, all of the things that she brought to the table, comparative numbers, for people that had her exact title, in her area of the country, because it does vary by location, and the years of experience and what her vision for the company is. And she made the ask, and they simply said, yes, we think you're right, you deserve it, effective immediately.
Hmm, that's cool.
Hmm.
Stephanie, this has been an awesome conversation. If people want to connect more with you, they can find you at your website, claimyourcareer.com. Your coaching packages are out there. You have some awesome blog posts that are out there. You can even schedule a free consultation call with yourself there. You're also over on Instagram at Claim Your Career. And then, as we were chatting about a little bit before this call, you're super active on Clubhouse as well. So if people are on Clubhouse out there and want to hear some more about you, hear some more from you, then they should totally go connect with you on Clubhouse. Anywhere else that you'd like to direct people to?
Yeah, no, I think you pretty much covered it all. On Clubhouse, my handle is at coach_Steph, STEPH. And you can certainly email me or contact me through the website as well.
Cool. Awesome. Final question for you. If you had the opportunity to teach a 16-week class to a group of graduating seniors on a topic that isn't normally covered in the classroom, what would you and how would you teach it?
Yeah, I've been really reflecting on this question because there's so many things, honestly. There was really two that really came up for me, which can really be intertwined, which is emotional intelligence and how to manage people. I think especially in corporate environments, a lot of people get promoted and then they're promoted based on the merit and what they can bring to the table with their skill set. But oftentimes how to actually manage other people who are doing the same thing is left to the sidelines. So a lot of people get promoted and that's where they end up feeling those limiting beliefs. That's where all of those lack of confidence comes in because you know how to do your job, but managing others to do it is a whole different ball game. And I think a lot of companies are missing the ball on teaching their up and coming managers how to manage other people, and leading with emotional intelligence. Again, something that nobody talks about really, but that is really an important and crucial part of being a leader, is really understanding how to lead and control your own emotions in environments which can be very stressful in many circumstances. So I think those are the things that I would really want to teach people that they haven't been taught coming out of high school and college.
Mm-hmm. And to pick your brain a little bit more about emotional intelligence too. So I sit down for my first day of class, and Professor Stephanie passes out the syllabus. What could be some things on the syllabus for emotional intelligence? I have no idea where I'd start in terms of teaching that.
Yeah, I mean, leading with vulnerability, I think is huge. Understanding different personality types and how to manage those, I think, is also really crucial. The different personality types, understanding the strengths of your team and how to capitalize on those, and how to deal with toxic work situations with your emotions, because I think that that's, again, where people really start to feel a lack of confidence or they tend to not want to stay in their companies, is because they don't have a good relationship with their boss. So you one day may be that boss, and understanding how to relate to your employees and how to manage with sympathy and empathy and heart-centered, leadership is really important. So those are the things that I would want to cover.
This has been such a blast, Stephanie. I wish you all the best luck on your coaching career. And if corporate life has got to stick around for a little while, best of luck there as well. But I'm really excited to follow you along.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. This is so great. And yeah, I can't wait to stay in touch and see your journey as well.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening. If you like this conversation today, be sure to subscribe so you'll be notified about new episodes. If you want to connect with me, send me a message on Instagram. I'm at Justin Lee Peters. You can find show notes with links to everything we discussed today at justinpeters.co. This episode was produced by Gabby Dimeke. I'm your host, Justin Peters. Thanks for tuning in.